Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. My name is Mike Shin. Always a pleasure to address my distinguished peers and colleagues in procurement and supply chain. I'd like to share with you a thought and a vision and a passion that I've had for a couple of years on how AI technology can and will transform procurement and supply chain management. As some of you might know, FLIR Systems, we consider ourselves the world's sixth sense. The CPO Digital Cockpit is the procurement sixth sense, giving us a super boost of supply chain awareness. Now, what is the digital cockpit? Well, it's what I call super dashboards on steroids, driven by AI machine learning technology platform, AI driven all the key relevant dashboards that's important for us to navigate day-to-day, week-to-week, quarter-to-quarter in achieving sourcing excellence for our businesses. And every spin has a secret code. The question is, how do we break and unlock the secret code? And how is the digital cockpit developed? It's developed by us, sourcing executive, where we provide input of sourcing solutions, execution instructions to a coding specialist, and with that drives these super dashboards that become the digital cockpit. And I'm working with two software companies, and I hope to engage with one of them that can help develop a working prototype and prove this concept and implement that on a practical basis. And I want to share with you some of the steps that we have taken. We just need a pilot to fly this plane and train and develop the pilot. And total awareness is all about speed and intelligence in doing our jobs, doing it effectively. Just to give you a little background on my career path, I started at Jack Welch's GE in the 90s, and I was part of the pioneering team that developed strategic sourcing as we know it today. And at GE, we drove global low-cost country sourcing. Then I went on to Stanley Tools to be the global head of procurement of that company, and we drove what we called best cost country sourcing, which means USA can often be the best cost country, so we have to be very wise in where we go in terms of our spend management. And then I went on to American Capital, which is a private equity company, and there I developed a key strategic sourcing levers that worked well in private equity business model. And then I went on to three great manufacturing companies, Federal-Mogul Automotive Parts, Remington Arms, and Gibson Guitars, where I applied the playbook from GE and Stanley Works, and it worked pretty well in these businesses. And now at FLIR, given that we're a high-tech company and that AI is a big long-term strategy for FLIR, I naturally thought about, well, how can AI technology be an enabler for procurement on how we can take it to the next level? And that's how I came up with this concept of a CPO digital cockpit. Problem is as procurement leads, we just have too many variables on our minds. And I'm a follower of William Edward Deming. He is the father of Six Sigma quality. And what he taught was variations are the enemy. And what the cockpit does is helps filter the variations to give us useful data and information that we need today to manage our time with maximum effect. And every day, we go to our offices. How about in the future, we climb in our jet and we strap into this cockpit. And the way it works, every morning, I'll do my checklist before I take off. Take a look at my spend, my shopping list, what are statuses of our key procurement savings, status of our key RFP projects, supplier scorecards, and then we get a red alert. In this case, early last year with COVID hitting us, we hit a deep recession and commodity deflation. We need to shop the spend, and we launched initiatives, what we call rapid RFPing and rapid repricing, which means that we approach our supply base across the board and ask them to pass the lower cost on to us and our goal was to achieve 3% price deflation. And what the cockpit does, it gives us instructions based on this environmental change. How do we cope with a COVID recessionary environment with commodity deflation? Today, we do it manually, obviously, with me leading the team. And the vision is how about if the cockpit, driven by AI, gives the team globally instructions on how to deal with their spin, and we get on the same page quickly from top to bottom, side to side, and we start to execute. And I want to give you some examples of breaking the spin code. And if you look at electronics PCBA, which happens to be my area of expertise, I apply what I call the 80-20 formula. And on travel expenses, policy compliance. For indirect spend, you can install the spin control tower, which maximizes transparency and visibility to indirect spend and establishes stakeholder accountability. And for logistics, for example, a small package parcel, you want to hire an audit firm. So it's a theoretical step-by-step instructions in breaking these spin codes. And as a next layer of execution details for electronics PCBA, this will be a cockpit step-by-step instructions on applying the 80-20 formula that I mentioned. And it's integrated with your ERP system, in our case, SAP. And it starts with cost intelligence, the unit cost breakdown. We need to know what the bill of material cost is, what the LOP conversion rate is, the total unit cost, and the LOP conversion rate. And develop the RFP. We need the AVL for the BOM. Set target costing with a fixed format as we execute the RFP. Construct a vendor portfolio, select our suppliers, make the market, and build relationship with the supply base with this vendor portfolio. So the cockpit will step your team and me on how to execute this 80-20 formula. And from there, prepare, negotiate, cherry pick the BOM, and negotiate the LOP so we can close in on a great contract, which would be 90 days payment terms, firm fixed price for 2 years, and a Kanban inventory consignment so that we can achieve great inventory turns. So AI now becomes the intellectual property of a commodity strategy, technique, execution, and closing in on, in this case, electronics PCBA, applying the 80-20, and it's the cockpit that gives us the instructions. Another example on the indirect side would be, let's say, travel and entertainment. How do you break the T&E spin code? What we did at FLIR was developed a new app that went on our FLIR home page. And we started with the policy, and we baselined our policy, looked at best practices. We found that our T&E policy was outdated and needed to be upgraded and overhauled. So we revamped and developed a new T&E policy that's competitive for an S&P 500 company. Establish spin accountability by businesses, cost center, and travelers. Digitize the travel experience. Make T&E policy compliance a key KPI and track and monitor the T&E KPI via dashboards. It's what I call walking the concur corridor. What I mean by that is as travelers book their trip going into concur, they see dashboards. For instance, on hotels, for total number of hotel nights stayed, what percent of hotel nights were at our preferred hotels where procurement negotiated great rates. Our goal is 90% of hotel nights should be with preferred hotels. Same with airfare, car rentals, meals, and everything else. So if I'm a traveler going in, I see that we're actually behind. So that motivates me to make sure that I book preferred hotels. And then another dashboard in tracking travel costs versus budget. And you don't have to show the actual dollars, but you can do it by cost indexes. But as an index of 100 as a go, if we're running at this point in time of the year, 110 index, that means we're 10% above our go. And as a traveler, I'll recognize that, and I may not travel, help the team hit our T&E go. So the game changer here is travel KPI dashboards that's displayed to motivate our travelers and meet our expectations. I want to switch gears to SIOP, Sales Inventory Operations Planning. The cockpit can work similarly, just as procurement. I want to know how we're doing with demand forecasting accuracy and sales planning. How are we doing with customer fill rates, our inventory turns? Are we tracking to our objectives in our AOP? Review our product SKUs, and are we addressing the long tail SKU analysis? And how are we doing with supply chain costs? And what are our key supply bottlenecks? And we get another red alert. In this case, post-COVID, we now have inflationary environment where we're going from deflation to inflation. And similarly, as I explained on how we handle deflation, the cockpit will step us through how to take proactive action, adjusting to this inflationary environment. And what I see is a perfect storm. We have severe shortages on electronic chips, oil, aluminum, steel pricing soaring, oil up 240% since COVID low, aluminum, steel up 120, 150% respectively. And the perfect storm is with Biden's stimulus initiatives. If he gets the infrastructure bill passed, you're going to see commodity pricing go up even further. And I expect, we hope, a jobs boom. We expect USA to lead the world out of the COVID recession. That's the perfect storm. So how do we deal with this new environment that has shifted so quickly? And my point of view is I had to put all this together manually. My preference is for the cockpit to tell me this is what's happening. These are all the key data points, so I don't have to go find the commodity pricing. The dashboard feeds me the commodity price trends and gives me the insights and instructions on what to do next. And what we did at Flair to pop this inflation bubble, and we did get good deflation last year, following the playbook that I mentioned, achieving record procurement savings. And I warned of this pending commodity inflation October last year, and reinforced inflation concerns December of last year. And in March, I declared crisis management. After the severe shortage of electronics chips, electronics is a big part of our buy, we saw a serious issue. Our CFO scheduled an urgent meeting with the CEO and staff where we discussed and developed action plans to mitigate and offset this inflation. And the procurement inflation playbook is extended purchase orders longer term so we can lock in at lower prices and be in the lead time and lock in our deliveries. And we can play offense on indirect expenses by installing, for instance, the SCT, the spin control tower. And we are actually forecasting a record indirect expense savings through various methodologies that we have deployed. So the cockpit will give us insights, instructions, and solutions on how to defeat this inflationary environment. And its speed and precision of getting the commodity spin trend and being aware so we can take proactive action, moving with a sense of urgency, deploy the mitigation plans immediately because time is money at this point, and find savings in indirect expenses and install the SCT, which I believe is best practice. The spin control tower is an apparatus. It's a platform where we have SCT committee members for key sites, where the champion would generally be the P&L lead for the site. Then we'd have a challenger. The controller would be ideal challenger. We need an analyst and a procurement professional to make up the SCT committee. And the spin case would be made on what is the purpose of the spin, prove the spin gives us the ROI, and it's essential and necessary, and defend the spin. So take all your indirect spin categories, whether it be legal, IT, marketing, HR, travel, as I mentioned before, and other indirect spin categories, run it through the SCT, and the committee members will decide whether you approve, reject, or defer the expenses. And the process has worked really well for us. But there are some pain points. the process is very manual, and it's viewed as bureaucratic, and from time to time I get some complaints from my teammates. And what we want to do is digitize the SCT process, and ideally through an AI driven platform, but that's long away for now. What we can do in the short term is to develop and install a smartphone SCT app, digitizing the process, make it faster, more seamless and natural. And the SCT committee members will follow this automatic process more efficiently, where it's less, where it's more painless, and as I mentioned, faster, seamless, and natural. And we're in the process of developing this app, and I'm working with a consulting firm and a software firm that can help and assist installing this digitized SCT, so that we can very quickly deploy the SCT across our enterprise, because we haven't expanded it across FLIR globally, and we want to do that pretty quickly, given that for 2021 we're playing defense on direct materials and we're playing offense on indirect expenses. So in conclusion, the takeaway is everything that I'm talking about, we're doing it manually. And what we're talking about with the digital cockpit is with these super dashboards that's IA enabled, how does it give us instructions and solutions on how to deal with various scenarios and situations and spin them graphics. Today, it's hard labor, it's slow, it can be inaccurate, perhaps too much guessing, and not always fun, although our work for the most part is a blast. It could be a lot better and a lot more fun if it's less manual. And that ultimately the CPO Digital Cockpit is digitization of strategic procurement and tactical purchasing through this advent of super dashboards on steroids that talks to us. And I believe that it is the next evolutionary step in strategic sourcing. Before it was global sourcing as well as like reverse auctioning. Now clearly it's digitization, and I think for the most part it is self-evident and obvious that we are now venturing in the digital world, and procurement will follow with it. And I want to thank you again for attending this session. I hope you found it insightful and at least entertaining. I think for the most part it's obvious, but as you can see, you can take practical steps in digitizing your procurement process for key spend categories. Start with the low-hanging fruits like travel, as I mentioned, and other direct materials spend categories, and prove the case, get the appropriation and funding that you need to implement by committing to an ROI, a clear line of sight to an ROI like travel, and make it work, make it stick, and from there take it to the next level. And what I intend to do going forward is, I got momentum now, and I hope to accelerate, and I expect to do so. And it's a lot of fun, and it's going to be more fun, and we see the results, and I'm pretty excited about our future. So with that, thank you again. Please be safe, and we'll talk to you next time.